really wasn't going to have any comment. I support the project. It's just like, you know, different versions of Little Women. When she said that, it shocked me, because you have to have watched Little House on the Prairie to understand what you're talking about.
They said it was friendship. Some called it obsession. But between Melissa Gilbert and Patty Duke, the truth was never simple. For decades, rumors swirled, and Melissa stayed silent. Until now. What she's revealing will rewrite everything we thought we knew about Hollywood loyalty, betrayal, and survival. Before we dive into what Melissa Gilbert finally revealed about Patty Duke, let's rewind a bit.
From what I'm hearing from people, is that Little House on the Prairie is a reminder of when things were simpler for us in our lives those 45 years ago.
Let's revisit who Melissa Gilbert really is and how she rose from a curious little girl in Los Angeles to one of the most beloved and recognized stars in television history. Early life and career of Pierre Starr. Before Melissa Gilbert became a beloved household name, recognized instantly by her signature braids, she was simply a little girl born on May 8, 1964, in Los Angeles, California. Just one day after her birth, she was adopted by actor and comedian Paul Gilbert and his wife Barbara Crane, a talented dancer and actress. From that moment on, Melissa was part of a family deeply woven into the world of show business. But beyond the spotlights, life was not always easy. Even though her parents loved her dearly, her early years were filled with pressure and uncertainty as she tried to find her place in a world where performing was more than just a job. It was the family's way of life. Paul Gilbert, her adoptive father, was known for his warmth and humor. He often brought young Melissa along to auditions and performances, letting her see cameras, bright lights, and actors up close. From a very young age, the world of television felt completely normal to her, almost like an everyday part of life. Without realizing it, Melissa was already being shaped by that environment, silently taking her first steps toward the fame that would one day define her. And by the time Melissa was 7, she was already appearing in television commercials for well-known brands like Alpo and Crayola. Her natural charm made her stand out from other child actors her age. Casting agents were drawn to her expressive eyes and the effortless way she delivered lines, making every scene feel authentic. Before long, she started getting small television gigs that helped her get noticed. Then, at the age of 9, she attended an audition that would change her life. She tried out for the role of Laura Ingalls, the brave and curious girl from Little House on the Prairie. The producers weren't just looking for someone who could act. They needed someone who could carry the heart and spirit of the entire show. What really helped Melissa land the role was her screen test with Michael Landon, who not only starred as Charles Ingalls, but also produced the show. Michael wasn't just an actor to her. He quickly became a father figure. From the moment they met, he saw something in her that others had missed. He guided her, looked out for her, and treated her like family, providing support she would come to rely on deeply in the years ahead. Little House on the Prairie premiered in 1974, when Melissa was just 10 years old. Almost overnight, she became America's sweetheart. Viewers could relate to Laura Ingalls. She was brave, curious, and full of questions about the world. Behind the scenes, Melissa was growing up quickly, surrounded by adults and long filming days. The set became her second home, and her co-stars became her family. It was a world filled with learning, laughter, and growing pains. Melissa later said she learned more about life on that prairie set than she ever did anywhere else. But behind the smiles and perfect scenes, Melissa faced a deep personal loss. In 1976, when she was only 11, her father, Paul Gilbert, passed away. Losing him at such a young age left a hole in her heart that even fame couldn't fill. During those challenging periods, Michael Landon stepped in as a father figure and provided the stability she needed.
How do you react to having worked with Michael Landon all this time?
Well, he's like a father. He always has been. Even after my father had passed away.
He encouraged her to keep acting, stay focused, and believe that life could still hold meaning despite such a painful loss. In 1983, Little House on the Prairie officially ended. Melissa was about 19 years old at the time. She had spent nearly a decade growing up in front of the cameras, and the show had shaped much of her childhood. During those years, she occasionally took on small roles and television appearances, but her main focus remained on portraying Laura Ingalls. As the show came to an end, transitioning wasn't easy for Melissa. However, she soon began taking on projects that challenged her in new ways. She appeared in television movies like Choices of the Heart, guest starred in shows such as Babylon 5, and explored theater and voiceover work. Each opportunity helped her grow as an actress and take on a variety of characters. People could see she was more than just the girl with braids. She was an actress with depth, versatility, and authenticity. And by her 20s, Melissa had built a successful career that stretched across television, theater, and film. She was no longer just Laura Ingalls. She was becoming her own person. But her journey from the little girl on the prairie to a woman in the spotlight was still unfolding. What was Melissa's life really like when the cameras stopped rolling? How did she navigate love, heartbreak, and family while living under Hollywood's relentless spotlight? And behind all the fame and smiles, who was the woman Melissa Gilbert became away from the prairie? Love, loss, and finding herself again. Beyond the fame, Melissa Gilbert was a young woman searching for who she really was. For years, she had been America's sweetheart, the face of hope and innocence. But when the cameras finally stopped rolling, Melissa was left wondering who she was without Laura Ingalls. As she stepped into her 20s, the world still saw the confident, talented actress from the screen. However, behind the scenes, Melissa was navigating heartbreak, identity crises, and the confusion that comes from growing up too fast in the spotlight. Hollywood had shaped her, but it had also taken away the chance to experience a normal childhood. She later admitted that she didn't date like other teenagers or make small mistakes in private. Every choice, every heartbreak, was scrutinized because millions of eyes were always watching. Melissa's first major relationship began in the early 1980s when she started dating Rob Lowe, who was one of the most popular teen heartthrobs of the decade. Their love quickly became the talk of Hollywood. Young, beautiful, and famous, they seemed like the perfect couple to fans around the world. But behind the smiles, red carpets, and fancy magazine covers, their relationship was far from perfect. Both were rising stars, navigating a world full of temptation and pressure. When the relationship ended, Melissa was left heartbroken. Years later, she admitted that she truly thought Rob was the one. What looked like a fairy tale romance from the outside left deep scars on the inside, a reminder that Hollywood love stories rarely stay as perfect as they seem. A few years later, Melissa found love again, this time with actor and writer Bo Brinkman in 1988. At just 24, she was still young and learning how to balance her career with her personal life. Their love was fast and quick, and by the end of that year, they were married. The following year, she welcomed her first son, Dakota Brinkman. And as expected, motherhood changed everything for Melissa. She devoted herself to raising her son, determined to give him the love and stability she had longed for during her own childhood. But marriage, especially under the unblinking eye of the public, was never easy. Both she and Bo were facing their own career challenges and personal differences at the time. Melissa would later admit that their relationship was a constant mix of highs and lows, and the relentless pressures of Hollywood only made things harder. And after 4 years, they divorced in 1992. The breakup left Melissa emotionally drained, but it also made her realize something important. She needed to find herself outside of love. She began focusing on her work again, taking roles that challenged her and reminded the world that she was more than just a child star. In 1995, Melissa married actor Bruce Boxleitner, a man she had known for years. Their relationship didn't happen overnight. It grew slowly, built on friendship, patience, and a genuine connection. Bruce was older and more experienced in the industry, and over time, their bond deepened until they finally exchanged vows. It felt as though Melissa had finally found her forever partner. With Bruce, Melissa didn't just become a wife. She also embraced the role of stepmother to his 2 sons from previous relationships. Later in 1995, Melissa and Bruce welcomed their own son, Michael. She named him after her late mentor, Michael Landon, a heartfelt tribute that showed how deeply she still cherished the man who had shaped her life. And for a while, it seemed that Melissa's life had finally found steadiness and certainty. But over time, cracks began to appear in her marriage. The pressures of fame, long work days, and personal challenges took their toll. By 2011, after more than 15 years together, Melissa and Bruce divorced. It was a painful chapter that forced her to face life alone once again. However, this time, things were different. She was no longer the little girl searching for a father figure or the young woman desperate for love. She had grown wiser, calmer, and ready to rebuild her life on her own terms. Just 2 years after her divorce, Melissa surprised everyone by finding love again, this time with actor Timothy Busfield. Unlike her past relationships, theirs started quietly, under the radar of Hollywood's relentless spotlight. They met through mutual friends, and there was something instantly different about Timothy. He wasn't chasing fame or trying to impress anyone. He seemed grounded, calm, and real. The kind of person Melissa hadn't known she needed. For someone who had spent decades living life in public, this simplicity was a breath of fresh air. In April 2013, they tied the knot in a small private ceremony in Santa Barbara, California, far from the media. After years of living in the non-stop glare of the media, Melissa did something that took everyone by surprise. She walked away from the spotlight and the fame that had followed her since she was a child. With Timothy by her side, she moved to the Catskill Mountains in New York, where they bought an old farmhouse and started a life that was silent, simple, and completely removed from Hollywood's constant pressure. She later said that for the first time in her life, she felt truly at peace. Looking back, Melissa's journey through love was never about finding the perfect partner. It was about discovering who she truly was with every chapter of her life. Yet even as she found stability and happiness in her personal life, another challenge lingered: the constant pressure to feel beautiful in an industry that rarely allows women to age gracefully. For years, Melissa faced a private battle that no role could prepare her for. What did it take for her to finally feel comfortable in her own skin? And what lessons did she learn after spending a lifetime chasing a version of perfection that was never real? Melissa's struggle with Hollywood's beauty standard. Melissa Gilbert is one of those rare child stars who literally grew up in front of the world. Her childhood was lived on camera, and the spotlight didn't let go as she moved into adulthood. When she left the prairie world of Little House on the Prairie, she was still just a teenager, trying to figure out who she really was. For years, she wore braids, simple dresses, and carried a smile that made everyone love her innocence. But when the show ended, Hollywood saw her differently. The little girl from Walnut Grove didn't fit the image they wanted anymore. They wanted a glamorous, polished starlet. This expectation marked the beginning of one of the difficult chapters in Melissa's life. Melissa's first big role after Little House came in 1981 with the remake of Splendor in the Grass. She was only 17, stepping into a story full of love, heartbreak, and grown-up feelings. It was a very different world from Walnut Grove, and everyone at the studio had the same thought. How would Melissa look as a grown-up star? The braids and prairie dresses were gone. Instead, she wore short skirts, makeup, and fancy hairstyles. Hollywood wanted to see her as glamorous and polished, and Melissa suddenly had to adjust to an image that didn't feel like her. At first, she didn't see a problem. She smiled, followed the instructions, and hoped it would help her career. But as she tried to fit in, she began to feel a change inside. The simple joy of acting started to mix with self-consciousness. Every mirror, every photo shoot, and every comment from a stylist reminded her that she was being judged not just for her talent, but for her looks. It was a sad and painful reality for a girl who had become famous for being herself. As soon as her movies were released, Melissa began noticing how people reacted to her new look. The press covered her transformation like it was a scandal. Some called her beautiful, while others said she had lost her sweet prairie charm. The attention was intense, and Melissa, still a teenager, didn't know how to handle it. She started to wonder if her face, her body, and her natural self were ever enough for Hollywood. By the time she turned 18, Melissa had made a choice she would later call one of the most complicated of her life. She decided to have a nose surgery, hoping it would make her look more camera-ready. In her memoir, Prairie Tale, she admitted that she tried to tell herself it was not a big deal, but deep down, she knew it was, in fact, more than a big deal. It was a moment of giving in to an image that Hollywood had chosen for her, not one she had picked herself. The surgery was not as easy as it seemed. Melissa remembered waking up with her face swollen and sore. Her nose was packed with gauze soaked in medicine, and even breathing hurt. What was meant to be a quick fix turned into a long and painful recovery. Complications from the first procedure meant she had to have 2 more surgeries. With each one, the pain grew, not just in her body, but in her heart. She had tried to change herself for Hollywood, but instead, she felt more distant from who she really was. However, Melissa's experience was not unusual for young women in Hollywood at the time. In the 80s, the industry was ruthless. Actresses were told how to smile, how much they should weigh, and even how to move in front of cameras. For Melissa, who had grown up with millions watching her every step, the pressure felt enormous. She began to believe that her success depended on staying perfect, no matter what. The constant focus on her weight, her face, and her image weighed heavily on her, shaping how she saw herself both on and off the screen. Melissa didn't stop with the nose surgery. As she moved through her 20s and 30s, she made more changes to fit Hollywood's expectations. She dyed her hair, got breast implants, and kept refining her image. Of course, to the fans, she looked confident and put together. Behind the scenes, though, she struggled with the feeling that she was losing touch with who she really was. The constant cycle of reinvention left her exhausted. Every change came with new pressures, and she felt like she was always performing, even when the cameras were off. The media didn't make things any easier. Magazine covers picked apart her looks, and interviews often focused more on her appearance than her acting. Melissa tried to smile through it all, but she later admitted that those years wore down her confidence. She lived in a world that celebrated perfection and punished anything less, and it made her question everything she had once believed about beauty and self-worth. However, everything shifted in 2015. After decades of trying to keep up with Hollywood's impossible standards, Melissa made a bold and deeply personal choice. She had her breast implants removed and stopped coloring her hair. Speaking to People magazine, she called it one of the smartest decisions she had ever made. For Melissa, it wasn't just about how she looked. It was about reclaiming control over her life. She wanted to feel healthy, natural, and free from the endless pressure to look a certain way. Some people were shocked, while others felt inspired. Melissa didn't just remove her implants. She removed the idea that she had to stay young and flawless forever. In her interview with Prevention magazine, she spoke openly about aging. "There's no such thing as anti-aging," she said firmly. "It's derogatory and demeaning. Aging is a privilege, not a problem." Those words hit home for many who had grown up watching her. The same girl who once symbolized innocence on television had become a woman unafraid to speak honestly about the cost of fame. She embraced her wrinkles, her natural hair, and the stories her face carried. Each line, she said, was a reminder of a life fully lived. Melissa's honesty about her struggles with beauty standards has turned her into a voice for authenticity in a world obsessed with appearances. Today, she encourages women to celebrate themselves exactly as they are, to age gracefully, confidently, and without shame. Her journey from self-doubt to self-acceptance shows that true beauty isn't about perfection, it's about being real. Perhaps that honesty, that unfiltered truth, is what makes Melissa's story so powerful. When she talks about her past, she doesn't hide the pain or the mistakes. She owns them, and by doing so, she permits others to face their own struggles. Her courage to speak her truth didn't stop with her own experiences. Melissa's openness extended to the people who shaped her life in profound ways, especially someone she often described as a mentor and a friend. This woman impacted both her career and her life in general. Over time, Melissa revealed parts of their relationship that few had seen, giving fans a rare glimpse into a Hollywood friendship that was as tender as it was complicated. But what exactly did Melissa reveal about Patty Duke? What really happened between them? And why does their connection still stir so much emotion today? The truth about Patty Duke. What Melissa revealed. When 15-year-old Melissa Gilbert first stepped onto the set of The Miracle Worker in 1979, she probably did not expect that one co-star would change her life. Patty Duke was already a Hollywood star, a woman who had seen the highs and lows of fame. From the moment they met, something felt different. Patty was not just another actress. She became a mentor, a guide, and someone who would shape Melissa's life in ways the media could never show. Patty had also been a child actor, and she had once played Helen Keller herself. So stepping into the role of Helen's teacher, Anne Sullivan, was deeply personal for her. Melissa often said she could feel that connection every single day on set. Patty took her work seriously, not just in front of the camera, but behind it as well. She pushed Melissa to dig deep, to act with honesty instead of just pretending. She taught Melissa that real acting wasn't about being perfect. It was about being honest. During the intense scenes, Patty didn't let Melissa hide in her comfort zone. She pushed her to cry harder, fight stronger, and really believe every word she said. It wasn't always easy. Melissa admitted that she sometimes left the set completely drained, but she also said those moments shaped her in ways that lasted a lifetime. Also, off the set and away from the media, their bond grew even deeper. Patty took Melissa under her wing and shared her own Hollywood stories. She explained how fame could feel wonderful one day and cruel the next. Melissa said she listened closely, realizing Patty wasn't just giving advice, but showing her what to watch out for. Patty spoke about the loneliness fame brings, how people often love the image but forget the person behind it. For a young actress still figuring out who she was, those words hit hard and stayed with her. Melissa also remembered Patty as a fierce protector. Whenever people on set pushed her too hard or criticized her unfairly, Patty was the first to step in. She defended Melissa like a mother protecting her child. Melissa said Patty made her feel safe in an industry that often felt too harsh and grown up for someone her age. She learned to trust her instincts and believe her voice mattered, even when others tried to ignore it. It didn't end there. Melissa revealed how she was deeply inspired by Patty's honesty about her struggles with mental health, something few celebrities talked about back then. Watching Patty live with bipolar disorder and still face the world with courage changed how Melissa understood strength. Patty didn't try to hide her pain or pretend to be perfect. She spoke about it openly and helped others see that pain doesn't make you weak. Melissa later said that Patty's courage gave her the confidence to be more open about her own struggles too. Melissa also talked about how much she loved Patty's sense of humor. She said Patty had this rare gift of turning even the most serious moments into laughter. During breaks on set, Patty would tease everyone, tell jokes, and fill the room with joy. Melissa remembered that no matter how long or stressful the day was, Patty always found a way to make people smile. Unfortunately, Patty passed away in 2016. The news broke Melissa's heart. She wrote a tribute that was both raw and filled with love. In it, she called Patty a kind soul and a fierce spirit who had changed her life forever. Melissa said she missed Patty's laughter, her wisdom, and her courage. To her, Patty wasn't just a co-star from a movie made years ago. She was a friend who helped shape the woman she became. What Melissa uncovered about Patty Duke showed the kind of bond that rarely happens in Hollywood. It was a friendship built on trust, honesty, and deep respect. Their connection became a reminder that sometimes the people who shape us most are the ones who help us face our truth. And for Melissa, Patty's lessons didn't fade with time. They became the guide for how she lived, loved, and stood tall in a world that often asked her to be someone else. Present life and legacy. Today, the woman who once grew up in front of millions is now living a peaceful life with her husband and son, far away from the spotlight. Melissa has never been afraid to share her truth. In her memoir, Prairie Tale, she spoke openly about the parts of her life most stars would have kept private. She talked about moments of self-doubt, the challenges of fame, and the pressure to always look perfect in a world that rarely allows flaws. She admitted that at one point, she barely recognized the person she had become. That kind of honesty wasn't just courageous, it was liberating. Her openness made people love her even more, not as the girl from Little House on the Prairie, but as a woman who faced life's storms with grace and found her strength through them. In her 40s, Melissa began facing health challenges that pushed her to her limits. During her time on Dancing with the Stars, she experienced an injury that required surgery and a long recovery. But even through those difficult moments, she stayed strong and focused on healing. In 2016, she stepped into a new chapter by running for Congress in Michigan's 8th District. Although she later stepped back due to health reasons, the decision showed a powerful side of Melissa, someone who wanted to use her voice to help others, not just entertain them. After some years away from the spotlight, Melissa Gilbert made a quiet but powerful return And this time, not as an actress or a new show, but through her own words. In 2022, she released Back to the Prairie, a memoir that surprised everyone. Gone were the lights, the red carpets, and the fancy premieres. Instead, she wrote about rebuilding an old farmhouse in the Catskills, braving cold winters, and finding peace in the little things. Fans couldn't get enough of it. The book wasn't about fame, it was about freedom. It showed a woman who had lived through the highs and lows of Hollywood and finally learned that happiness wasn't in the spotlight. It was in the silent moments no one else could see. These days, Melissa isn't just living quietly. She's speaking boldly about things most people shy away from: mental health, body image, and aging in an industry obsessed with youth. She's been using her voice to remind women, especially younger ones, that they don't have to chase perfection to feel beautiful. Her words became an anthem for anyone who's ever looked in the mirror and struggled to feel enough. In addition, Melissa co-founded Modern Prairie, a lifestyle brand that celebrates women in midlife through creativity, friendship, and shared stories. The idea behind it is simple, yet powerful. Aging is not something to hide. It is something to embrace. Through this platform, Melissa encourages women to see beauty in the ordinary moments of life, in the garden, in the laughter of loved ones, and in the quiet peace that comes from living truthfully. Today, Melissa still keeps in touch with her fans through social media. She often shares pieces of her everyday life, from her dogs playing in the yard to silent moments with her husband and the sight of her garden bursting with color. Each post feels calm and genuine, a silent reflection of how far she has come. What stands out most is the peace she carries now, the kind that comes from letting go of what no longer serves you and holding on to what truly matters. Looking at Melissa today, it is clear that her greatest role was never one written in a script. It is the one she built with her own hands, a life defined not by fame, but by honesty and peace. She has become a voice for self-acceptance and body positivity in a world that often values illusion. Her story reminds us that true strength is not always found in the spotlight. Sometimes, it begins the moment you choose to step away from it. And as this video comes to an end, one question stays with us. What does it truly mean to love yourself as you are, without filters or expectations? And in a world that demands perfection, have we forgotten that even our celebrities are human too? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. If you enjoyed this video, click on the next video on your screen.